So in this session, we're thinking about, well, let me tell you how I think about art in a very simple way. So you have your subject, which in this case is a bottle. You have the artist, which is me, and then you have your picture, what comes out the other side. The bottle exists at a kind of a distance from us. All of the world around us exists at a distance from us. And what art does when we make a painting or any kind of creative practice, we're bringing this kind of into us and through us. And what comes out the other end is an expression, in a simple picture term here, of our experience of reality. And in this first session, what we want to do is focus on the picture. So the subject can be complex in itself, but to think about the bare bones of making a picture is what we want to do in this taster session. And then in future sessions, we'll build on that. In this first session, we're thinking about making a picture. So it's a straightforward, bare bones kind of approach to making a picture is what we're going to be looking at. I think about art in simple terms, in terms of subject, so the thing that we're observing, artist, which is us, and then picture, the thing that comes out the other side. The subject has complexities of its own, and so does the picture. So we really want to just focus on those kind of bare bone foundations today. We're trying to make it as simple as we can for this first session, and then we'll use that to build on in future sessions. Okay, so the first thing we're going to contend with in our session today is thinking about relationships. Now, when you make a picture, you are thinking in terms of a rectangle. Very simple as it can be, just a rectangle. But within this rectangle, I want you to think about it as a world. Okay? And at the moment, this world is empty. And what the artist does is introduce relationships to this world. One of the relationships we're going to be thinking about is tone. So to make it simple as can be, we're working with just 3 tones. We have a dark tone, this black, a mid-tone, the grey, and a light tone, the white. Now, each of these tones relate differently to each other. They all have different relationships. So our black and white, we might call them opposite, or the 2 extremes. And the mid-tone is in the middle. It relates less extremely to the black and to the white. So if I take a mid-tone rectangle here and I put it on the black shape, we can see there a certain kind of relationship. It's kind of a gentle relationship compared to if I put a white rectangle on that black. It's a really kind of loud relationship. So look, gentle and loud. Similarly, if I put the grey on the white, it's a gentler relationship. And then if I take a black shape and put it on there, it's a loud relationship, okay? Because I'm putting those 2 extremes together. If I take the grey and put it between the black and the white, something interesting happens. So what we have on this side is the grey seeming lighter because it's set against the black background. Now on this side, the grey is set against the white, and it seems darker. So look there, grey is darker. On the black, it's lighter. So the relationship, actually the identity of this grey, of this midtone, changes depending on what it's relating to. Whether it's relating to one or the other, or whether it's relating to both. The relationship of it changes. And this is really, really fundamental and important when we're thinking about making art. So that's relationship one, is tone. Our 3 tones that we're going to be working with. Relationship 2 is shape. So I've got a bunch of shapes here. I'll put these things out of the way. I've got a bunch of shapes here, and they all relate to each other in different ways, these shapes. So looking at these to begin with, okay, there's a long, thin shape and a short, fat shape. And they're different, aren't they? So they have, if you imagine them as people, they will be have different personalities, different character. Similarly, I'll take a square and a circle. They're different, and they feel very different. If I take a square and a shape that's half circle, but it still has this straight edge, it relates more closely, doesn't it, to that square than the circle did. But it also relates to the circle because it has a round edge. So shapes, in the same way we've talked about the tone, they have these kind of differing relationships. They can have an opposite and relationship that brings an effect of kind of the extremes, or they can have a closer relationship. Okay? So you could vary big, small, long, thin. Here, kind of wavy. Look at those. 2 different shapes or marks. You imagine those as marks in a drawing. Okay? They relate to each other in that they're both wavy marks. But they're different because this is kind of jaggy and sharp. And this one is kind of smooth and undulating. Okay? So all of these things within shapes, they have an effect within a picture. If you're using long shapes, thin shapes, curvy shapes, all of these things affect the way our eye reads this world that we're creating. Okay, so we've looked at tone, and that's shape. And now what I want us to think about is the edges of shape. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to just use our grey mid-tone. Now, there's a rule about making a picture that we're restricted to or bound by, and that is that within a picture plane, we call this a picture plane or a rectangle, we have 4 sides here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have vertical sides and we have horizontal sides. And whatever picture we put, whatever shape we put within this picture plane, within this rectangle, it relates naturally to these edges. So if I put in a rectangle like this, immediately the edges of this rectangle, the edges, relate to the edges of the picture plane. They correspond to these edges. So that feels quite comfortable in there. But if I put a circle in that rectangle, there's a very different relationship because the circle doesn't have any straight edges. It doesn't have verticals or horizontals. So that relationship is very different from the straight edge shape. Okay, do you understand that? It corresponds here. But here, this doesn't have anything to correspond to actually, so it feels quite alien in there. So if you have a shape then that is, oh, lost my shape there. If you have a shape there that has straight edges and a curve, something else happens here. The straight edges are corresponding to the edge of our picture plane, the rectangle, and the curve here can correspond to the curve of this circle. So this circle all of a sudden doesn't feel so alien because there's something else within the picture plane for it to kind of converse with, to talk to. So all of these things, these relationships, we're going to play with in our world.